this, although this has been said many times before, is a starting point, a turning point. What we mustn't think is, okay, Paris has got an outcome, we can all go back to doing business as usual. What's important about Paris is that it signals to all sectors of the community, all parts of the economy, investors, business leaders, financiers, politicians, that we are now on the road to a low carbon economy, something that the Climate Group has been advocating for well over a decade. And that'll happen because people see not only is it desirable, but it's viable and financially attractive.
Well, oftentimes people don't say that climate change is affecting your national security, but when you look at it from the perspective of defense of your national interest and of your country, then you can drill down pretty quick and understand that it clearly is a national security issue. Now, I've often said that climate change in itself is not causing the instability or causing conflict, but it's an accelerant of instability. And we see this all over the world. So as you probably know, the United States has combatant commanders and it has these regional commanders who all have to look at instability in their area and be prepared to defend our interest and defend other interests, as well as prevent humanitarian catastrophes, for instance, like Typhoon Haiyan, and help the aftermath of that in the Philippines. So it's a very complex issue, but climate change is clearly a contributor to instability in the world, and we've got to be prepared for it.
So the summits in Lyon and Toronto happened 6 months before the climate negotiations in Paris. And it was a really important moment, as you say, for bringing cities, state and regional governments together to do two things. One, show the huge amount of action and ambition that's taking place at this level of government. And two, provide the national governments and the international process with the confidence that they need, that there is this momentum and level of support behind them. What we saw at those summits was that with the Compact of States and Regions, we saw 20 governments already bringing forward their climate commitments, and these 20 governments represent over $8 trillion in GDP. And what we've seen since these summits is that we've got double that amount of governments coming forward with climate commitments. So we're seeing that this is just the start of the momentum building, and that these two summits mark the start of that.
We talk about energy efficiency. We talk about new gadgets and opportunities. Too often, however, we're talking about choices and options that are actually only available to quite a small part of the population. And that's both in the developed world and the developing world. What we've seen as we've begun to think about the home and the emission-saving potential of the home is that we need to broaden out these opportunities. So we've looked at some of the project work we've already done, like Bidgely, looking at off-grid and rural energy. We've looked at what some of our corporate partners are doing in terms of developing low-carbon technology for the home. And we're thinking, so why isn't this being taken up more rapidly? What are the barriers? We've found that in India, for example, there's a significant group of the population who have a home, they have good income, but actually they have very few choices that they can make to create a lower carbon living space for themselves. Even in the UK, where we are used to thinking of ourselves as, fairly enlightened and with many choices, the reality is that large parts of the population actually have very limited choices in terms of energy supply, green tariffs, lower carbon technologies. So we're saying there's a huge potential to save emissions through the way we build and use our homes, but the opportunities are not evenly distributed, even within the developed world. So let's highlight the opportunity, let's highlight that unevenness, and let's really engage our corporate partners in staying true to what they tell us. They tell us they want to develop low carbon choices for the many. Well, let's see what that really means. And let's help them really explore how we can make sure that a low carbon home is a choice available to as many people as possible.